this morning is based on a chant by Paramahansa Yogananda entitled Door of My Heart.
Our reading is taken from Rays of the One Light, the weekly commentaries on the Bible and Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This is week 49. There it is. What is it to fail spiritually? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The first passage is from the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 25. Jesus tells the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 of them wise and 5 foolish. They await their bridegroom, the Christ consciousness. The wise virgins keep the oil in their lamps, symbolic of their devotion, lit through the night. The foolish virgins place no oil in their lamps. These foolish ones are like the average devotee, going through the motions of outer ritual, but keeping no fire of love burning in the heart. When the bridegroom's coming is announced, the foolish virgins realize their mistake and hasten out to purchase oil. During their absence, the Christ consciousness comes and embraces those who have been awaiting him with devotion. The foolish ones, by their lackluster devotion, are not accepted by him. Watch, therefore, Jesus told his listeners, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda describes the, quote, foolish virgin consciousness he encountered in the Mahamandal hermitage he stayed in as a young man in Benares. I was pleased, he wrote, that my new home possessed an attic where I managed to spend the dawn and morning hours. The ashram members, knowing little of meditation practices, thought I should employ my whole time in organizational duties. They gave me praise for my afternoon work in their office. "Don't try to catch God so soon." This ridicule accompanied one of my early departures toward the attic. Later, during meditation, I felt lifted, as though bodily, to a sphere uncircumscribed. "Thy Master cometh today." A divine, womanly voice came from everywhere and nowhere. This supernal experience was pierced by a shout from a definite locale. A young priest, nicknamed Habu, was calling me from the downstairs kitchen. "Mukunda, enough of meditation. You are needed for an errand." The Divine Mother's words were not spoken for the benefit of that priest, the foolish virgin, but for Mukunda, the wise virgin. For this was the day his guru, Sri Yukteswar, came to him. Grieve not, friends, if you feel that you have been foolish. No error is forever. Someday, if you keep your lamp lit now, your opportunity will come. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 6th chapter, Krishna promises every devotee, "Arjuna, none who works for self-redemption will ever meet an evil destiny." Spiritual failure, though a deep disappointment, is always temporary. Quote, "Eternal hellfire is but a projection of vindictiveness in the human mind." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Oh.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How is everybody today?
Awake and ready.
Yay. Thank you for coming and joining us this morning. For those of you who don't know us, my name is Nayaswami Gangamata. This is my husband, Nayaswami Daiva. So we're going to begin with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. This is Yogananda's book of prayer demands and poems. And this is number 174. My finiteness has gone to rest, cradled in thy arms of infinite perception. Noisy sense impressions quieted at the sound of thy softly approaching thread of inner peace. Calming my breath, wakeful in higher awareness, I sat stilly waiting. Inner sounds, soul melodies burst out in welcome to thy majestic coming. O King Silence, with thy approach to my peace-decked meditation chamber. In the darkness, hidden diamond chips of broken dreams dimly glittered, hinting at the blazing glory of thine approach. I gathered all my sacred aspirations and tied them together into a single bouquet with strings of countless graces that I had received from thee. Then I offered that bouquet at thy feet. Lo, my humble offering was transformed into a bouquet of gold. With this gold will I construct a shining, ever-enduring temple in my soul, wherein I will sit on thy throne of peace. Amen. So our subject this morning, what is it to fail spiritually? I'm going to just make a little bit of room here. I thought, well, finally, there's a topic that I have a lot of experience with. I have lots of quotes, so I may be referring to my notes this morning. It's really fun to prepare for a talk. You have maybe 15, 20 minutes, and what do you say? There is so much to say and so little time, so it's really hard to know where to pull the inspiration from. But it's so wonderful that this topic, what is it to fail spiritually, is tied to our affirmation today of immortality. How can we fail if we're immortal, if we're a child of God, if we're ageless, if we're deathless? A disciple once asked Yogananda, will I ever leave the spiritual path? And he said, how could you? We're all on the spiritual path. Everyone in the world, that's why this is how it's built. All the gains and the losses, the victories and the defeats, it's all to bring us back home. And it's all in perfect divine order, and we forget that. Everything that happens is in divine order. We've been talking a lot about our time in India in October, and especially what you see in the roads in India. You know, here in America we have very straight lines, and they're marcated, and you only see vehicles. And in Portland, maybe you see bicyclists and the occasional person. But in India, as we've shared, you see everything. You know, not only you see from a big bus all the way to the smallest vehicle that's called a tut-tut. And it's basically this driver with one engine, and then it's an open air little cart. It's like being at Disneyland, you know, and then he drives as fast as he can, trying to miss, you know, and not hit anything. And there's everything in the streets, from people to all kinds of animals, you know, cows and dogs. And we were in Delhi, which is the capital of India, big city, wide streets, and someone had just said on the bus, well, I haven't seen an elephant yet. And then sure enough, there was an elephant right there. I was reminded too of the story, but it's all in perfect order. It seems like chaos, doesn't it, on the surface? And when you're in India, you just have to surrender, because you know there's this divine flow. And the longer that you're there, you see, oh, this kind of rhythm, it makes sense. People intuit that flow of energy that's happening on the road. So something from a big bus to a small dog, they can navigate together. Swami Kriyananda tells this story many years ago when he was married, and he took his in-laws to Disneyland. And you know, they have those rides where you can get into either it's a boat or a car, and there's a steering wheel, and you get to sit and you get to steer. And so they got in the boat, and his in-laws were in the boat behind him. And he was turning around because he wanted to say something to his father-in-law. And his father-in-law said, no, don't bother me now. I'm busy driving. But we know that tract is all, we know where the boat is going, right? It's going to go around and again. It's wonderful we're talking about immortality, because I know a few weeks ago we talked about reincarnation. Here we go, back again and again. And then we talked about karma last week. What are those things that bring us back again and again till we realize who we really are? We are that immortal soul. Yogananda said that this life is like a school. He said, one, it's for our entertainment and education, and he often joked how little we're entertained. But we're here so that we can graduate, okay? Everything that happens, but graduation in a deeper sense, again, that we remember who we are. We're that immortal soul. Speaking of school, this mother walks into her son's room, and she said, you know, you have to go to school. And the son says, well, I don't want to go to school. And the mother says, you have to go to school. And he says, well, I have two good reasons why I don't want to go to school. I don't like school, and the teachers don't like me. And she said, well, sorry, I'm going to give you two even better reasons why you have to go to school. One, you're 52 years old. And two, you're the principal of the school. So it begs the question, who are we really? Are we the principal? You know, we're so quick to define, and we talk a lot about this. We're quick to define, I am this, I am that. I can do this, I can't do that. There's a wonderful Indian epic, the Ramayana, and there's the story of Lord Ram and Sita. And at one point, Sita was separated from Ram. She was taken by the evildoer Ravana. And Ram is just distraught, and he's trying to get any help he can to go find Sita. And time is running out, and he finally meets and he befriends the great Hanuman. And Hanuman is part monkey and part man, and he ends up becoming the greatest disciple of Lord Rama. So Hanuman agrees to help find Sita, and he calls all the monkeys. And there's word that he ended up that Ravana brought Sita to the south of India near the shore. So they go on this long journey, and they have many adventures you see in the story. But by the time they get to the shore of India, they're exhausted. They've been traveling a long time, they're tired, they're hungry. They really just feel deflated. They feel like they can't go on any longer. But they know that Sita's just across the sea, and all they have to do is go across the sea, but they can't do it. Just done, right? Have you ever been to that point? You're just done. Just say, I don't want to, you can't make me. I'm there. They were there at that point. And finally, one of the friends of the monkeys comes along and says to one monkey, now I've seen you jump a sea greater than this before. You can do this. And the monkey says, but I was a lot younger then. I can't do that now. And then this friend goes to another monkey and says, well, I've seen you do this. I'm sure you can jump across that sea. And then he or she had their reason, and on it went like that. Till finally they got to Hanuman. great Hanuman, was sitting there. He too was dejected. Ever notice how you're like this, you just feel dejected, and there he was, just humped over. And he's like, Hanuman, now I know you can do this. I've seen you do this before. I've seen you rescue us many times, so many times. You can do this. And he's just not moving. And then finally the friend says, Hanuman, Hanuman, don't you know who you are? Don't you remember? And then after a moment, it took him a moment, and then he starts to roll his shoulders back. We talk a lot about that. Rolls his shoulders back, expands. You feel his aura filling out his body, and then you feel it expanding. And then you see, he's remembering who he is, and he pushes himself off the land, and he's able to jump across the sea, and he becomes bigger in size, not of ego, but of that true knowledge of who he is. And you'll have to read the Ramayana to know more what happens then. But Hanuman's strength came in the knowledge of who he really was, that he was immortal, that he was a child of eternity. And so are we. But we forget that. We're hard on ourselves, right? I didn't energize today. Ooh, maybe I didn't energize the night before. Oh, I'm a really bad person. I'm starting to, go spirally down. Or I only meditated an hour instead of 2 hours. We forget how blessed we are to even be here and to remember, to even want to know God. Yogananda said it takes very good karma to want to know God, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Whenever I start to see myself spiraling downward and I'm not doing well enough, I'm not doing enough, I go, it's time to read about the lives of the saints. Pull out those books and remember, because they remind you of who we are. And they didn't have it easy. One of my favorite, and we tell this story a lot, is about Saint Teresa. She had spent all her life dedicated to God. And here she is at the end of her life. She's older. She's done a lot in her life. She's frail, but she's going out to open yet another convent. And it had been raining and pouring, probably similar to the Northwest here, but pouring, and just the rivers are high and they're running, but she's going to go out and do it. She just knows this is what she's going to do. And she has some of the younger nuns with her, and they get in a horse-drawn carriage, and they're trying to cross this river, right? But the river is swelling, as we know the story, and it starts to topple the carriage over. And at that point, she could have said, I'm old, I've done this before, I'm done. But no, what does she do? I would love to see a movie done of this scene, where I imagine her flinging open the carriage door, and she steps out and just lifts her skirt. And what does she do? She steps into the river. The carriage is stuck. That's not going to stop me. What's that? Why would that stop me? I'm going to keep going and start another convent. She steps into that water. And what happens? We know. She starts to get thrown off balance because the river is so strong. And then it's at that point that she's about to fall, that Christ appears to her and says, Teresa, don't worry. This is how I treat all my friends. And then even at that point, she could have said, forget about it. This is too hard. The spiritual path is hard. But what did she say then? It was so endearing. She says, my Lord, but no wonder you have so few friends. Yogananda said, an easy life is not a victorious life. Okay, it's not a victorious life. But he said, I will give you plenty of good karma so that you can get through, so that you can make it. There were a group of disciples that were with their guru, and they were each asking him, when am I going to find God? When am I going to find God? And he was answering each one individually, giving them all their individual answers. But then his foremost disciple asked him, and he said, it's going to be 1,000,000 years. And all the other disciples were aghast. They went, and they were feeling so bad, 1,000,000 years. And then this foremost disciple just started dancing with joy. And they're all looking at him like, what is wrong with you? And he said, I'm going to find God. What does it matter how long? And in that moment, he was freed. The masters, God, they love us so much. If we make any direction towards them, if we just open our heart, they will be there to meet us joyfully and with all their being. Yogananda said in his beautiful poem, God's Boatman, I will return again and again to this one stray brother left behind, to the last one. I don't know if that's the exact wording, but the essence is till there's just one last brother left behind, one last brother, sister, one last person desiring to know God. He will come back again and again and again. Okay, and the reminder just with our teachings is to prepare ourselves. Prepare ourselves how? How do we remind ourselves that we are children of eternity? Through all the tools that we have, through affirmations. They remind us of that expanded state. We talk about meditation, of course. That helps. It reminds us of who we really are. Environment is stronger than willpower. We forget. So we need to come in supportive environments that help us remember that. And then help us to remember to prepare our hearts. The fact that we forgot to meditate or we didn't do this or we didn't do that, whatever, we need to remember and do those things. Do the very best we can. There was a very poor man who lived in a very humble shack in a village, and he had a great love for his king. And he just always wanted to have him over and just host him at his house. But he had such a humble shack, and he just didn't do it for the longest time, and finally said, I'm going to invite him over. I don't care, I'll do the best I can. And so he invited the king, and the king accepted, and he did everything he could to his home to fix it up. But it just didn't look that good, he was a poor man, and on the surface it didn't look that good. But wouldn't you know, a day or two before the king is to arrive, all these people from the king's palace come, and they're bringing all these beautiful treasures to make his home more beautiful. They brought all these big potted plants and trees that they put outside his little shack. They brought in the most expensive rug to put on his floor. They brought in these fancy curtains and draperies and all this delicious food so that he could host the king when he arrived so graciously. And that's true with us. Everything that we're doing, how we're spending the moments of our day, the attitudes that we hold, the spiritual practices that we're doing, all of those things are preparing our hearts so that we could receive him more deeply in our lives. It's so beautiful. Christmas is here. Whenever I see the tree here, it's arrived, and it's so beautiful. Thank you to everyone who always makes our altar and our temple so beautiful. But we're celebrating this Christmas season not only the birth of Jesus in that tiny form, right, many, many years ago, but that birth of divine awareness in all of us. And just like a tiny baby needs to be taken care of, right, and fed, and the baby Jesus is just so tender. Same with us, our spiritual longings, especially when we first come to the path. But then as we continue to awaken more and more deeper, we need to feed that. It's tender, right? We need to take care of it and hold it ever so lightly in our hands, but keep feeding that birth of divine awareness, that knowledge of who we really are. And in the music, we'll be having a concert on Saturday night, and the following Sundays we're going to start to hear more of the music of the Christmas season. It reminds us of that inward journey. It talks about the hush of winter, the stillness, that reminder that it's inside where we'll discover our immortality, but where we can also hold on to it. So as we go into this Christmas season, holding that blessings of who we are, and then remembering to prepare our hearts through just our best self efforts, opening our hearts. We say every week, the masters say, open your heart to me, and I will enter and take charge of your life. And so I'd like to end with a poem from Yogananda's book, Songs of the Soul. It's a beautiful poem called Breathe in Me. Breathe in me the way to love you, that I may learn to faultlessly love you. Pour me the wisdom wine by which I become intoxicated with you. Whisper in my ears of silence the way to be with you always. Speak to my wandering senses and lead them back to your sanctuary within. Call the marauding mind and counsel it how to retrace its steps to your home. With your silent eyes, just look at me, and I will know where to find you. You may hide behind the ocean. You may hide behind delusion. You may hide behind life. You may hide behind dualities. You may hide behind unanswered prayers. But you cannot hide behind my love, for in the mirroring light of my love, you are revealed. Oh, peace. Amen. Thank you, everyone.
It's of Paramahansa Yogananda.
Keep calling him, keep calling him, keep calling him. Whether he replies or not, keep calling him. In the temple of unceasing prayer, believe that he's approaching there, and call to him, keep calling him.
Now to start praying, Lord, you know I love no other. I'll speak not nor ask when to expect from you an answer. You know my heart. I'll call to thee again. Keep calling him, keep calling him. Whether he replies or not, keep calling him. I'll wash the feet of silence with the waters of my tears. The altar of my soul will be empty till the rest. I'll wait for thee, no matter days or years. Keep calling him, keep calling him. Whether he replies or not, keep calling him.
In the center of